This is my Backstreet album. I had another album that was given to me, and it had skater crap on it, so I took my leftover pictures from the Backstreet show and I put them on there. So, supposing we should begin. Okay. Now this is the ticket that I was given. And I bought my ticket the week of the show, and I got 7th row by my solitary self. And I got seated between two extremely drunk people. And in order to get into the orchestra pit, you had to have these Cricket Wireless amphitheater bands, even though everybody knows that place is sandstone. But this was Starlight. And there's news clipping. I was in Orchestra 1, B3. For the show, I got a pic of the venue, and these artsy-fartsy pics you see like right here, and the one at the end of the show, that's actually this picture modified. Brian's son Bailey was like the first opening act, and he sang a bunch of stuff like My Girl, and Brian came out on stage to give him a helping hand, and that was kind of cute. Brian was wearing KC Royals jersey, and then he made this offhand joke. Royals are going to the World Series this year, and I know it. Keep in mind, this was in June. This was June 7th. Nobody had any idea until, the wild card thing happened that the Royals were going to go to the World Series that year. Because he said that because Jeremy Guthrie was actually in the audience, a few rows behind me, actually. So I thought that was awesome that Brian was able to call that even before the show began, or most of the Royals season, was much underway. And so the lights came down, and it's funny how much Bailey has grown since then. He's a teenager now. So hard to think about that. I remember him being a little kid, bringing James, Howie's son, out on this little wagon, introducing the boys on the This Is Us tour at the Midland, which is a very small venue. Amazing how they grow. Kids just sprout. Anyhow, they opened with the call, and typical of my A-series canon, my camera went, "Hey, person's arms, let's focus." And, that's just the story of your life anytime anybody in front of you takes a pic with those auto-focusing cameras. I guess, can you see that better now? Okay, on to the next. I love how, this show came out so well. Some songs I got a bazillion pics of. Other songs I got one pic and, moved on. And I just enjoyed the show. I kind of did that with Don't Want You Back. I just kind of focused. Brian sounded really good that day, by the way. I mean, he was doing amazing. I don't know what it is, the last 3-4 times the boys have come here, it's just rained and rained and rained, and had that really hot, humid, kind of thing. And maybe that seems to help his voice some. But he always seems to do real well when they come to Kansas City. I think your summers are hot and humid enough, right? So yeah, Incomplete. After Don't Want You Back, which was one of the best songs of the show, there was Incomplete. Now, I mentioned that I was stuck between two incredibly drunk people. That's just luck. You buy a solitary ticket the week of the show. That's just what you're gonna do. Right? So, girl to the right of me was like, "Hi, I live in Arkansas, but I'm from KC, and when I heard the boys were having 20th anniversary tour, I just had to come." And during Incomplete, she just lost her bananas and rushed to the stage and got bopped back by security and returned to her seat like a sad, dejected puppy. I just could not help but laugh. And she dumped maybe 3 beers on the floor during the show. But what's new? That's drunk people for you. Got some good pics of Kevin during Incomplete. Stain was one of those songs that I didn't focus too many pics on. I tried to get a pic of Nick smirking, as you can tell it didn't work too well. Then there's All I Have to Give, which then I mentioned I was between two really drunk people, so the guy to the left of me, Mr. I call it Fragile Masculinity, he didn't want to admit that he was a fan, but he knew all the lyrics, which means you knew if he wasn't a fan, he knew someone very well who was. And he got pretty wasted by the time All I Have to Give came around, which is pretty sad because it's like 5 songs into the show. If that. You know, you're talking first set, they're still wearing the blue suits. So everybody decided that they were going to do the wave. Mr. Drunko decided he was going to try to do the wave with the beer in his hand. It didn't work too well. He dumped beer all over my shoes. But never fear, those crusty green sandals, they just keep going on. I'll get to more of his shenanigans later. That's still one of my favorite songs live, is All I Have to Give. As Long as You Love Me ended up being the most photogenic song in the set. I got a lot of really good pics of the boys. Of course, that pic on the left is edited to show like a camera battery mark. That's kind of like a spoof on the music video, if you've seen the music video, where they're looking through the camera. This picture is every single reason why I got this A-series Canon. This is the best pic I've ever seen it taken. It took this with zoom on in the 7th row. See how crystal clear that is? See how in focus that is? That's amazing. I got a kind of slightly out of focus Nick pic, but you know, it was still a really good zoom shot. I was so excited I almost threw my camera in the front seat riding back with Brooke. It's like, you have to see this Brian pic. Not you, do you want to? You have to. This song is called Show 'Em What You're Made Of. They wrote it for their kids. It's a beautiful song. It's one of my favorites off of In a World Like This. And the song that I got the most from was Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely, which has always been one of my favorite songs of theirs. So I get silhouette pictures and kind of silhouette pictures and black and white pictures, and it ended up being the best song of the night. That pic right there is my Facebook cover pic. Still. And it's been like 3 years. Got a good pic of Howie right there. There was some concern about how Howie was going to do because the boys were just recovering from the flu right when our concert was. Like, they had to bow out of the last concert because Howie got really sick, which is weird because Nick is usually the resident Typhoid Mary in that group. But Howie got really sick, and you could tell he was still kind of on the mend, but he did really well. So, with all that said, they did real well. Got some more Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely, and I really like this shot that I decided, it's this shot, but I decided to make it a halftone because why the hell not? Now this one over here, Breathe, that's a song dedication. Basically, that is dedicated to their longtime bodyguard who suddenly passed away from a heart attack in December 2013, I think. Johnny Q. Algani, otherwise known as Q. Fans knew him real well. Sometimes you see him in, their behind-the-scenes videos. He's the one in the documentary that, AJ was talking to about, having that jacket from the movie Drive. So, during this song, they told everybody, get out all your cell phone flashlights on for the song dedication, and I decided to add an after effect to this picture because I desperately tried so hard to get a picture of the lights, and all I ended up getting was like glowing swoopies that looked like the live stream. So, I tried. Not for the lack of effort. It was beautiful though. Never Break Your Heart was one of those songs that just kind of laid back. Brian sounded really good. This is We Got It Going On, which is weird because they never performed that song at my other shows. I almost got to go to NKOT BSB, but I was sicker than a dog that day. got a really good shot of the light filtering through AJ's arms on this pic. And a fan in front of me decided to hold her hands up like this. So it was really interesting how that shot was superimposed. It worked out real well. Then there was the acoustic set. Time for Drunk Dude story number 2. Because one story is just not enough. So Howie's talking and he says, we figured we, want to put in an acoustic set because one day we're going to get old and gray and we're no longer going to be able to dance this stuff. And Howie, being typical Howie, is like, until then, and he started like shaking his ass in front of the audience. And the girls were like, yay! And this guy, Mr. Fragile Masculinity, started. He was like, shoot the frick up, motherfuckers. I want to hear you sing. And he kept saying it, and I was just like, I'm just going to die of embarrassment. If the camera comes over the audience where, you get projected on the big screen, and Brooke and Robin said that I was on the big screen, I was like, I don't want it be this moment, It's like, I feel like I'm going to die of embarrassment being next to this, shoot up, motherfuckers, I want to hear you sing, not dance. Like, really, dude? Really? You just had to do that before the acoustic set. But anyhow, as you can see or not see from the acoustic set, is that there's multiple people behind them on the stage. And if you got the top level VIP, you got to sit behind the boys and look out into the audience with them. And I swear that's Kim from the forum. I swear that's who that is. And they did 10,000 Promises, they did Drowning a cappella, and of course that's an old shot from We Got It Going On. That didn't fit in a collage anywhere else, so I put it there. And anyhow, this is Madeleine. And Madeleine is it's a very sad song. The story is they were recording for the new album in London, and they got wind on that a fan was going to commit suicide, so they found out, they tracked her down to send help for her, and it was too late. And they were so distraught over it that the guy they were working with wrote this song, Madeleine. And it is such a heartwarming song, and it's sad, but it was prime for the acoustic set, and I got plenty of pictures of Madeleine, and I love Madeleine. This picture, I split into 2 pictures. And the story with that is that there was this guy between Nick and Brian, and he was making a face. It was really kind of unbecoming during a serious song like Madeleine. So I darkened the pictures to where you can't see him making that face, and I turned it into 2 different pictures. So it works. And anyhow, that song came at a really timely time of my life. I mean, not good, but I really felt like I connected with Madeleine. And I'm glad they did an acoustic set because I've been wanting them to do an acoustic set for years. And at the end, they did Quit Playing Games, which is weird because usually the most meh song in the set for me usually is Quit Playing Games because I was like, oh, it's the same 3-chord song that is the most boring single they have. I mean, at one point in time, I learned how to play it on guitar. But the way they did it in the acoustic set, I really enjoyed it to where I only got like maybe a couple pictures and that's it of Howie and the guitar and Nick. And this layout is one of my favorites in this entire album. This is the one. And it seemed like I got just a lot of very joyous punches of color all over this. You can't really see it that well in this lighting, but it's a lot of like rainbow polka dots with blue vellum with thickers on top of it. And I found an excuse to use my cutter bee because why the hell not? And I basically stitched those mats together. See? So I just really enjoyed making this layout. And it was just fun. Now, this song was like the theme song to I Heart Nick Carter, in case it Love Somebody sounds familiar. Not to be confused with the Kings of Leon song that I dearly loathe. Got a couple good shots of Kevin. We've papers together. So this is Love Somebody, and Love Somebody, it's a really good song for Howie. It is right up Howie's alley. I mean, it just has him and his ad-libs and everything written all over it. And they're like a heavily focused Howie song, and they're like, what? And then you heard it, and it was like, yeah, that's excellent. And then there's Shape of My Heart. I desperately tried to get good pics of Shape of My Heart, but for some reason my Canon decided it wasn't going to focus at that point in time. I got one really good shot that was like kind of almost a silhouette, but not really. And then I tried to get some shots, and then they kept getting clouded out by, you know, every time Shape of My Heart happens, there's always the people in the audience with their hands doing this number. And then the camera goes, hands! So then I just took that and ran with it. I put bokeh around there. It was supposed to be a pic, I think, of Brian during the opening line, and it didn't turn out. Because, you know, her hands were all ghosted up anyway, so why not? And there was a lot of really nice theatrical lighting. If you notice that I put these little veined leaf things on the page, and I think it kind of added to it. And those Fitzgerald thickers, can't live without them. You'll be seeing them more. In a world like this. I love this song. It's such a happy, positive song, and it's my ringtone. So why not? It's one of my favorites off of In a World Like This. And this story with Brian and the Millennium shirt goes like this. There was a girl in the audience that threw her shirt at Brian. Brian was asking, how many of you guys have the first concert special? How many of you guys have the Red Album? The Red Album, the self-titled album that was not released here in the States, but all the other places in the world got it. And it's like red and none of them have facial hair, and it's basically known as the Red Album, as opposed to the US debut, which is the record label's thoughts on what the 6 best tracks were from the Red Album and Backstreet's Back, which was their second album overseas. That wasn't released here. And he was like, how many people have Millennium? And this girl, who was a teenager, threw her shirt at Brian, the Millennium shirt, and she's like, that's a shirt I had since I was 4 years old. And he was like, that was your shirt? You were 4? So, random girl who threw her shirt at Brian, I got a blurry pic of Brian holding your shirt. Just thought you should know. And got a pic of Kevin and Nick leaning on each other during In a World Like This, and Brian playing guitar, and Nick playing guitar, and plenty of guitars, and guitars can make a world go round, and I don't know. Then there's I Want It That Way. I tried to get good pics and got a couple of them, but anyhow, what happened during the show was that Kevin's son, Mason, his older son, who was maybe 6 years old at the time, he said, I want to run up stage and I want to be with Daddy. So, you understand, in terms of the Backstreet children, Mason's, he's pretty reserved in comparison to some of the other ones. So it was kind of funny to see him run up to the stage and want to be held by Daddy. And it was really super cute, and I super tried to get pictures and failed miserably at it. So that's me attempting to get pics of a 6-year-old who wouldn't hold still because he's 6 years old. Maybe he felt more comfortable on the KC show because, well, he was seeing in-laws because Kristen's from Shawnee Mission, so he was visiting in-laws, and they were a few rows behind me on the next section over. So it's funny to see him run up stage and want to be held by Daddy. Oh look, it's more Fitzgerald thickers. Are you surprised? I seem to love these. It's so weird because I'm not usually a gold person. I'm more of a silver person. So what's up with me liking these gold Fitzgerald thickers? Maybe it's because I can cram a lot of crap on a page. I've certainly added a lot of matting to this. This is part of the finale, says everybody. And of course, you know, they had the visually confusing different camera rows of Backstreet Boys and stuff because, you know, the camera would reflect onto them and everything, and it would reflect back onto the backdrop. So then there was like giant rows of them. But it was awesome. Here's the encore, Larger Than Life. I'd probably say for up-tempo songs, this is my favorite. Again, I found any reason they're available to use my cutter bee. And what you may or may not see is that I have these photos on a shimmery paper mat and then a matte cardstock paper mat that's like just a little lip on that side, and then I have shimmery paper, like glitter paper, hanging out underneath it, and that's where it's, you know, stitched across all of that. So I had a lot of fun playing with textures on this page. This is also one of my favorite layouts. I do caution, if you rearrange the order of your pages, make sure that the ink on your thickers is dry. There was an imprint that said Encore here and an imprint that said Larger Than Life on the other page because I did a switcheroo and I found out the hard way why you don't do that. But lots of blues, lots of purples, and over here I accidentally got this really bizarre photobomb of Nick and Howie together. Like Nick just swooshed into the frame and Howie just looks like he's just stunned. So, and I should have known that this was going to be another blurry Brian because Brian almost always whips his head on that opening line. And he's wearing a Royals jersey there. Hey, cool. And final bow, or getting ready for a final bow, which was kind of blurry. And at this point, I just put my camera to burst mode, and I actually got a decent pic of the final bow for once in my life. That never happens. That's so truly bizarre. And I did a collage. If you saw, there was a bunch of collages in the scrapbook. Fusel was the app that I used to make them. Before I got the subscription Photoshop, I used an app called Photor. If you already know your way around Photoshop, it helps to know where your direction and your editing is going to go into. And of course, you know, when they took their bow, and then they go upstage, and then they take another bow to, like, the background music show them what you're made of, and it's so fantastic. Like, they show it in the documentary DVD, how they do that, and it's just all the concert footage from that DVD, that was what that show was like, because that is from the same tour, just an earlier leg. And that legitimately, that's exactly how that concert felt. But they took their final bow up the stage, and then they wave, and then they disappear, and all the little plumes of smoke just rise up and whatever. And then everybody just sits there stunned going, what the hell just happened? And there's my artsy-fartsy pic from, you know, earlier in the show. Next concert. Now, after the NKT-BSB tour, Nick and Jordan decided that they wanted to record an album together, but they couldn't, you know, because Backstreet's tour was a little kind of in the way. Because 20 years anniversary is a big, huge, whopping deal. This time, I decided to drive myself because all my friends had to work. But I got my ticket the day of the show, and again I got 7th row because apparently I'm just good at getting 7th row. There's just something about 7th row that is just so magical to me. And I didn't remember what the set list was because Nick's solo tour and his Nick and Night show, he changes the set list. So that puts me at a kind of a disadvantage. I didn't get as good of pictures as I did of the Backstreet show, but it's understandable. The Foley is a tiny theater. The Uptown, which was the later show that I'm going to show, that's also a tiny theater. Foley, I think, is that off of 12th? It's not too far from the Midland where the boys performed in 2010. And thankfully, it was not sweltering as hot as the Midland was because this was a show in September. So, pretty architecture of the theater and whatever. And so, him and Jordan decided to record an album together, and this is the tour supporting that. They did some acoustic stuff together. Nick plays guitar. He sometimes plays drums too, but played guitar on this tour. Jordan apparently plays keyboard. So, now we get to the story of Drive My Car. Apparently, it's a thing during Drive My Car to go pick up one of those light-up batons out of the audience and do, like, the side wave with it. And he picked it up, and after the song, he gave it back to the wrong girl. And the girl was like, thanks! And he looked at the other girl and he was like, oh crap, that was your baton? I'm sorry, I'm gonna get you one after the show. In Kansas City, he brought Falling Down into the set list, and it was amazing. It was so very driven and heart-wrenching. I wish I got a video, but somebody else on YouTube did. Thank you. And it was great. And I got some good solo shots of him. And one single Nick and Night did together was One More Time. And there's, oh look, it's those Fitzgerald Vickers again. And a lot of collages, because there's not a lot of really nice pics. And I tried to get a pic of the guitar solo during Larger Than Life because they were jamming out with it and it didn't work too well. And I got a few good pics. Of course, the final bow ended up being really blown out, but, you know, can't have everything. And after the show, we all decided to line outside the venue and wait in the rain for them to come out and say hi to us. We couldn't, you know, get much picture of them. I kind of got a couple of pics of Nick as he was walking by, and those disasters are over there. But, you know, Nick came out and he shook everyone's hand, and Jordan came out and high-fived everyone. And there was a fan I met there named Janice, and she had just kicked cancer, and she met Jordan, and he just bent down and gave her the biggest whopping hug I think I ever seen. And anyhow, it was just such a feel-good night. They did a lot of 90s covers in the show as well. Okay, this is the All-American tour. I went with two girls from high school, Robin and Brooke, and I had, again, I think 7th row again, because I'm talented like that apparently. Or was it 6th row? I don't know. But if it's I'm just going to say 7th because it keeps in the pattern. So it was kind of running outside the uptown. Of course, I was dearly clinging on to battery life because my phone was dying. And I'm sitting there going, my ticket's on my phone, and ring up my phone before I get through the door. And then I got to my seat, and venue security still argued with me on whether or not I was in the right seat. I looked at that person's ticket and I was like, no, you're on the left side. I'm right orchestra A1. You're left orchestra A1. You're over there. And it's pretty freaking terrible when venue security argues with you whether you're in the right seat. Wop, 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 wop. But yeah, I was like all the way on the right end on that 7th row. And that's like the set list I kind of figured out from looking online because, you know, like the Nick and Night show, it changes a lot from date to date. And of course, you know, that week was so stressful. My car blew a head gasket. It was going into the shop. I think Brooke's car had trouble too. So I had to borrow Daniel's car. So later on, I got this as like a late birthday present to myself. I think Riley opened for him. But I'll never forget how venue security argued with me on whether or not I was in the right seat. Because this is why we can't have nice things. I got a lot of navy blue paper, and it's really hard to kind of tell there, but I played a lot of stacking with navy blue paper. There's like 5 different colors of navy blue being represented on this left page. I just thought you should know in case you couldn't see it. And much flannel. I tried to find any reason to use that gingham strip, but whatever. It's getting towards the end of the album. Starting to try to topple over. Found another way to use a coordinations paper. As you remember on Don't Want You Back from the Backstreet show, that was also coordinations paper. Doing the tearing thing. I have a tearing tool somewhere, but I lost it in the scrap room somewhere. Go figure. That's just how things are. That's an acoustic set that he did right there. He actually brought back a lot of songs from Now or Never, too. I was kind of surprised. But I'm really glad that he performed I'm Taking Off because he didn't bring that tour over where I live. You know, we barely got a glimpse of Now or Never because the only Now or Never that Kansas City got, I believe, I can't remember if it was a Red, White, and Boom thing or if it was Jingle Bash or I don't really know. It was one of those like seasonal shows that Mix 93.3 puts on. It was one of those deals, which is funny because I just remembered something. They kept trying to give us Justin Bieber tickets outside the Upton Theater, and it was like, what? No, I think you have the wrong generation. But that acoustic set was nice, and it was nice to see resurgence of older songs that we didn't get to see at Nick and Night or in Kansas City in general. So yeah. Now, even more hilarious thing, I know that shimmer is kind of covering up this page, but can you guess what oddball cover that I really freaking hate that Nick included in the show and he made it sound good? Wonderwall by Oasis. I freaking hate that song. I couldn't care if it circled the sewer drain. But you know what? He actually made it sound good, which I'm really utterly surprised because I really freaking hate that song. Yeah, I'm just glad he didn't make it as whiny as the original. He did it much better than the original. Don't tell Oasis I said that though. I might be a little biased. A lot of lacing things and shiny things, and I like shiny things, and I tried to get video of falling down, but I found myself singing along to it, and I felt self-conscious, so I didn't put it on YouTube. That and the sound was blown out a little bit, because it was my little Canon. Little bit of tongue at the audience. I think Final Bow somewhere around here. I swear there was a Final Bow somewhere around here. It's close to the end here. I experimented with some embossing powder and some glue and some distress glitter. I got a lot of distress glitter from Tuesday morning. And of course, I'm still not really adept at using it. So I had trouble kind of figuring it out. So, if you want to know what this is about, there was a secret memo going around. If you bought $100 worth of merch, you got to take a selfie with Nick. And of course, you know, I ran into that one fan that everybody talks about. She asked me where the after party was after the BSB concert, and that was really hella awkward. And then her phone died in the bathroom, and she was not happy about that. Anyhow, irrelevant information. So, I got to take a selfie with Nick. And, like I said, my phone died 5 minutes into the show, but not before venue security argued with me over whether I was sitting in the right seat or not. So I brought my iPod because my boyfriend bought me a 128 gigabyte iPod because I have a lot of music and I can't warrant spending hundreds more dollars for an iPhone that is big enough to store both. So, whatever. So, Nick took my iPod and he bungled it in his hands and activated burst mode, so I have like 18 shots of Nick and I. Seriously, that's like the greatest ending page ever. And that was like a great ending to a really crappy week, because, you know, I just... that week was so terrible. It was terrible. And I'm just glad that I could end on that note. And I hope you enjoyed my Backstreet album. Until they tour next time, I don't know. Will I do a Vegas residency? That requires traveling, and I heard Vegas is like the worst city ever for autistic people, so I'll see, you know. Maybe one day I can decide to do it, but... you know, until then, I just got to keep that in mind. You know, I definitely will have to bring my Hear One buds, though, because I know I won't survive it otherwise. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, this is what the back cover looks like of my Backstreet album. Just thought you should know. Toodles.